everybody, and welcome to another Faster Masters Rowing Radio. This is our program for December 2019. I'm Rebecca Caro, and as always, I'm joined by Marlene Royal. Hey, Marlene.
Hi, Rebecca, and hello, Faster Masters. Nice to be here.
And of course, this is the time of year where Marlene and my dresses just disappear in coincidence, because of course she's facing snow and winter and I have short sleeves on and I'm totally into summer.
So, our lake just froze over this week, so
yeah, and ours is just looking gorgeous.
It happens. I'm going to come and visit you.
Deal. So let's kick off by talking about what's in the Faster Masters program for December. Do you want to run through each of the modules, Marlene?
Yeah, sure. This is what we have coming up in December. For our strength and training program, we're going to focus on getting back to the basics of some base training. It's holiday time. People are busy, but it's also important to get some good foundation work in, low stress, high volume, and be consistent through the holidays in between your parties. In our technique module, we're going to have a movement assessment this month to identify specific areas that you may need to focus on to improve your strength. Improve your stroke. So we might look at some mobility issues, some flexibility issues, identify some hot spots that you can work on this month and over the winter to help improve your body, to improve your rowing stroke. Our performance module is going to guide you through a fitness evaluation, which is comprised of 4 ergometer tests of varying lengths. And the comparison of these tests will give you some very specific information about how to improve your performance for next season. And it will help identify some areas of training that you might need to put some extra special attention on this winter, whether it's aerobic, whether it's power, whether it's your anaerobic threshold. So you'll be able to identify these things pretty specifically, as well as we're going to have part 2 of the article, which is called The Elements of Endurance. Our rowing lifestyle module is going to feature a very handy elastic band travel circuit, which is perfect for these days when you're at relatives or on your way somewhere for the holidays, or not at home. So it's something you can take with you, that it's simple to do in a hotel room or when you're visiting friends, to stay on track. And our bonus gift, we're going to surprise you about that, as always.
I always like the bonus gift.
Yes. We have the most fun with the bonus gift.
Yeah, you guys need to understand that actually half of the fun of this is Marlene and me deciding what we're going to put in the program each month.
Right. What are we going to do this month, but we do want to keep it. We do want to keep it in line with what's happening in the racing circuit, because we are keeping our eyes on the training circuit. We keep our eyes on North America, Australia, New Zealand, Britain. So, we're working on multiple layers here when we're coordinate what we do and when we do it. So,
and by the time you listen to this, of course, the head of the Yarra in Australia will have happened, which is their really big 8s head race. And we've got a couple of athletes, I think, doing that, which is cool.
Yes, we do.
Welcome to our Australian listeners. Now, last month, we started off with some questions and answers, and I think we hinted that we had got far more questions than we had time for. So this month, we've pulled out a couple of new topics from some of our listeners, and thank you for sending in your questions. And let's kick off. Our first question came from Betsy Tansey, and she says, since winter's fast approaching, I'd like to hear your thoughts on different cross training. Of course, you already have a great winter program. Thanks for the compliment, Betsy. What do you think about erg sprints? She asks. Are they a good goal for me?
It depends. I think with erg sprints, now on a North American schedule, erg sprints typically will happen in late January or February. This year, I think Crash Bees is actually the 1st of March. And if you think you need a goal like erg sprints, and that's your motivating factor to get through the winter, and I think if you're really burning to do it, I say go ahead and focus on it. Where I would put some caution, and I definitely, with some of the athletes that I work with, I do definitely caution them regarding erg sprints, because as a masters athlete, if you're going to focus really heavily on the summer sprints and on the fall head races, I think you have to be really careful about trying to do a major peak in February at the end of winter, because it all that interval training that you're doing to really focus on that peak does take away from some of your time for your base training. And you don't have a whole lot of time for base training once you get into the spring and you're getting ready for your summer sprint. So winter time is really valuable for that time of training. So that's one reason why I don't think it's absolutely necessary to do erg sprints. I think the other thing is that you have to be very careful about potential illness. Winter, at least if you live in North America, is not a time that has a lot of sun. And I think when you're training hard, it's easier for that to affect your immune system. And I think it's much easier to catch a cold or get the flu in the winter months, which often also coincides with when the erg races are. So I think if you're burning to do it, do it. I absolutely do not think it's an essential part of winter training. That's just my opinion.
Having said that, it could be quite fun to do without making it a peak. Just turn up, do it.
Yeah, just get and do it. Don't train too hard for it that it takes away from other things. If you need that carrot for winter training, it's a really good goal. It depends on, it's very emotional. Either you want to do it or you don't want to do it. So I would say go for it if you're into it.
Now, Betsy then adds a corollary, which is, she says, what should be the overall goal of a good winter training program? Is it strength building? And how do I test that my strength is increasing?
Well, the overall goal of a winter training program is base training. And, this is the time that I would emphasize high volume, low intensity, low medium intensity, really solid strength program. Focus on imbalances, focus on any mobility issues that you have time to work on, hip mobility, ankle mobility. If you want to test your strength, obviously if you work with the trainer, you can coordinate maybe some key tests that you do with your trainer in terms of your weightlifting. If you want to have something that's rowing specific, I would say a 10-second peak power test on the erg is certainly one way to keep an eye on, is that max wattage getting higher? There's also a technical element to that. So if you're rowing better and applying your power better and you're stronger, you're going to see that wattage go up. For your cardiovascular, my go-to test is the 20-minute trial, because that's something that's a measure of your anaerobic threshold. And if that's improved, if you're seeing good improvement with that, that's going to have a very good influence on your training in general. And Betsy also asked about flexibility. And I would say, see a trainer or somebody who can do a functional movement assessment with you and actually look at your movement patterns and any restrictions or mobilities, and find areas where you think you can make improvement.
There's always more that we can do when it comes to flexibility.
Yes, yeah. But I think at the same time, Cinda's question is good, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin in a winter training program. Like you don't need to do 5 different classes. You need to keep it interesting, but maybe zero in on 2 or 3 things that are your priorities that are things that are going to help you improve your performance for the spring, and keep it interesting, but try to also be consistent with a couple of things. If you decide you're taking a Pilates class, try to stay consistent with that throughout your winter program. So I have a question for you, Rebecca. This is from Cinda Graubard, and she asks what to add to training at the start of a new season and carry through the season to give the biggest boost for head racing at the end of the season, which is many months and a sprint season away.
Well, I can tell that Cinda has obviously had a disappointing head race and wants to do better next year. So commiserations, but also great attitude and long-term planning. There are two big areas where I think you can improve. One is improving your technique, whether you're sweep or sculling. If you can make good technical improvements and hold on to them, that will in the very long term make you go faster. And I don't know how many years into your rowing you're in, but I know that every additional year of training you do, if you continue to work on your technique, you will become more skillful. One big area that a lot of masters forget about is the recovery part of the stroke. So people tend to say, I need to be stronger, I need to be stronger. But actually, you can make the boat go faster by not slowing it down on the recovery. So having some drills that you can practice when you are back on the water, which will help your poise and your relaxation. So rowing is a stroke of two parts, obviously the power phase and the recovery phase. It is a contrast between tension in the power phase and relaxation in the recovery phase. If you can relax more, you give your muscles rest. That means you can sustain the tension for longer. So some specific drills around the recovery, I think, will be very beneficial. If you also train in a crew, again, the more years the same crew stays together, the faster you will tend to be. And in fact, my particular quad, ladies, if you're listening, hello, we are now just going into our third year together as a crew. We're actually changing the seating order somewhat, but we are also really noticing we had a couple of outings where we had a substitute member, someone was away, and so there was three of us plus one extra. And then when we got all four of us back together again, we really noticed the difference in quality because we're really used to rowing together. Now, from the other side of it, obviously having a good high base level of fitness will really help your endurance racing at the end of next year. So assess your own fitness. Cinda, go have a look at the C2 World Rankings. Concept 2 published these. Go have a look at your age and your category, if you're lightweight or heavyweight, and look at them for different distances. Do a test, or 2 or 3, like the ones Marlene mentioned, and you can see what percentile you're in, so you can find out whether you're in the top 10 or top 20% for your age, or whether you're lower down. Where you're at the beginning doesn't really matter. What matters is how you progress your own score as your season carries on.
And for Cinda too, Cinda lives in Colorado, so she's up at high elevations too. But lots of base work. This is where your cross training fits in, your cross country skiing, and looking. I think Rebecca's the technique is very important. If you're spending time on the erg, really using time to analyze where you're going to make 1%, where you're going to get 1% better or 2% better. Try to look at every small little thing. And Cinda's already a very, very, very fit athlete, but she wants to keep getting incrementally better. And very.
Don't forget, as you get older, your incremental betterness is about comparing yourself to athletes of similar age. It really frustrates me when I'm sculling Marlene. Sometimes I'm out there and I think, this feels good. Like we were out there this morning doing your 12-minute castling. And I was like, this feels really good. I feel like I'm working really hard. And of course, the little voice in the back of my mind goes, but you are not as strong as you were when you were 30.
Oh, when those splits were very different.
Too true. Now, Dan Jablonski has written in with some interesting questions. His first one, Marlene, is, he says, for those of us for whom work travel is a constant reality, what advice do you have for workouts that are, you know, you've got to do them, but you're in a hotel and the gyms are so lackluster? What can I do to get a good workout?
Well, business travel is definitely an area where you have to have a routine. I think, first of all, have a habit or develop a plan for when you travel. And I think one of the things that's really important for a business traveler is to know what your training plan is. And when you get to a gym, and granted, it may not be the most exciting place, but maybe there is a nice gym nearby. You can always ask in the hotel. There could be something nearby that would be a lot more interesting to go to, even if it's a couple minutes away. But try to, if there's some aerobic equipment, try to mimic your planned session on another piece of aerobic equipment. For example, like if you were planning to do something that was like an AT workout, so maybe this is something like a tempo or a comfortably hard workout, maybe you can do that on an elliptical. Maybe you can do it on a spinning bike or a stationary bike if that's available. If not, a real go-to, almost every gym has a treadmill. It may not be a wonderful treadmill, but they have a treadmill, and putting the treadmill on a very steep angle and then walking fast is one way that you could do a really good workout on a treadmill. If you don't run or you don't like running on a treadmill, you can still get, this is a Zeno Mueller secret, by the way, very steep treadmill, very high intensity. You can get a great aerobic workout, and almost every gym at a hotel will have some kind of a treadmill. Focus on circuits, lightweight circuits, calisthenic circuits, body weight circuits, circuits with elastic bands. These are always things that you could do in a simple gym if there's some dumbbells or even some very simple strength exercises, or something you could do. I mean, I would have a go-to calisthenic circuit that you can do in your hotel room if you want to. You can do squats in your hotel if you want to. I mean, something that you can, if you need to do it, body weight exercises save you time. You don't have to leave your hotel room. You can get up in the morning, first thing, do it, shower, and then get on with your day.
And I will put a link to the home exercises circuit in the show notes. These are exactly what Marlene just described. Bodyweight circuits you can do in a hotel room. They work on a verse and chorus, a little bit like a song. So the chorus is high knee running on the spot. So that, trust me, that exhausts you. And you can choose how you balance them, whether you want to do a certain number of reps on each station, or if you want to do it for a certain amount of time. And remember that the vast majority of hotel rooms will have a Bible or a Quran in the bedside table, and that's probably a 1 pound weight. So you can definitely get some light weights that you can hold and not have to travel with them. Now, the second question from Dan is, what do your successful traveling masters do in order to balance those not so optional business dinners and the social obligations of a corporate career with the training needs required to meet challenging goals?
Well, there is discipline involved. That's for sure. But first, I would say make sure that you train early in the morning before your day gets started. Whether it's, and if you can't do an ideal workout, do something. I mean, push-ups and sit-ups and squats in your hotel room is much, much better than skipping the workout and saying, oh, that's not going to matter. Every day, you have to think like, okay, I'm business traveling, but, I'm really thinking about Masters Nationals or how I want to do in my fall head race. And would I skip a workout just because I'm on a trip? So fitting it in and being willing to modify, even if it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's great when you have a really busy day. The social sides of things, there's a couple of things you need to watch out for. Keep an eye on your weight. If you're coming home from every business trip and your weight's creeping up 2 or 3 or 4 pounds, that's a signal that you need to make better food choices And if you're eating in nice restaurants, you can probably have very, very nice food without a ton of fat or a ton of sugar, and still have something that's very enjoyable. So I would say watch your diet, watch how many alcoholic drinks you have, and you may, when you're socializing, they may not really notice how long you stay at the cocktail party, but they will remember that you showed up at the cocktail party. So nobody's really, if you want to be careful and say limit yourself to one drink, you can walk around with one drink all night. Nobody's counting how many drinks you drink or how fast you drink it. So I would say watching the alcohol, watching your food choices, especially high fat foods and high sugar, and do your best to get to bed on time and get enough sleep. If you get enough sleep, you're much more likely to get up in the morning and do workout. The other thing that business travelers do, especially if they have to go overseas, is once they arrive in their destination, they try to immediately get on the local schedule. So even though it's a little bit rough at first, in the long run, it's going to help you stay on track with your exercise. And when in doubt, if you can't do anything, take the stairs, go out for a walk, and do a little bit of stretching. But just try to do something that supports your goal, that says, you know what, I didn't totally bag it today. I did this for 15 minutes, and it counts. If you do that for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that really adds up over the course of a season of business travel, when racing season might be far away. But I think you'll feel better about yourself if you stay on track, and even if you have to modify, but do it.
Don't make the mistake my friend Pip made. She went to a conference in Chicago, and she decided that she would walk back to her hotel from the conference venue. And she said she'd gone like 2 or 3 blocks, and a police car pulled up alongside her and said, "Lady, you're from out of town." And she went, "Yes," because she's very British. And they said, "Get in. You do not want to be walking through this district."
Yes, know where you are, right? Know where you are. Okay, so see, next question is for Rebecca, and this is from Gavin Kerr, Master Sculler from the Philadelphia area. And he said, "I would love to hear you talk about adjusting one's training as we age, particularly now that I'm starting to recover more slowly and I have had my first overuse injury."
Oh, Gavin, I am sorry for you, but let's hope that the overuse injury is a warning signal rather than anything terminal. So, aging and training. It's a really big topic. It's also one of the key things that we get asked over and over again. So I'm going to give you a really, really quick bit of advice, which is that we have an ebook which is ready for you in the Faster Masters program. I'm just showing it on the screen now. It's called Faster Masters Episode 7. No, it's not. It's called Faster Masters Returning to Rowing and Coaching Masters. And it's an ebook. It's $9.99, and it's called The General Guide to Age and Experience. And it will give you the framework of what to expect in each decade as you age. So that's a quick plug. However, having said all of that, when it comes to your own training, every single one of us is different. If you've had a lifetime of training regularly, you'll be different from someone who has just started training intensively in their late 40s. So individually, we should each just notice our body and how it feels. Notice your aches and pains, tiny little muscle strains. Notice how you feel when your alarm clock goes off in the morning and you get up. I personally do some daily monitoring, particularly when I'm at home, but I take my resting pulse when I wake up. So that's an app off my phone, and my resting pulse has 2 useful things to it. Firstly, I can see my own consistency. I know that my general resting pulse is between 48 and 54 beats a minute when I wake up in the morning. If I find it is 5 beats or 10 beats higher than that range, it tells me I'm probably incubating a virus that hasn't yet started to show, and it acts as a warning that I can then back off on my training so that I don't overdo it. I also monitor the color of my urine first thing in the morning, and I personally also weigh myself every morning, so I know what I weigh, which tells me what I can eat. The other thing you can do when you get used to listening to your body is to plan your heavy workouts in the week according to your schedule. So if you know you've got 2 or 3 long rows scheduled, don't do them on consecutive days. Try and have a rest day or a light day or a lighter day in between so that you give yourself the maximum chance of recovery time. And one of the things you'll notice with the program that Faster Masters advocates is that you do the same session several times during the month. That has a couple of benefits. One is obviously you get used to what that session is, but you can also record your own scores, whether that's your speed or strokes per minute or how long it takes you to go from one marker to another around your lake or down your river. But it also allows you to monitor your own progress. The first time you do a workout, you can figure out whether you're very tired after that or not, and then you can see how your fitness and skill improves. So I tend to approach each new session that I've never done before with just a degree of caution. And then the second time I do it, I then know that this is going to be approximately this in terms of my heart rate or my perceived effort. And then I can moderate how I approach that training session. And then obviously I'm always competitive. I'm always going to try and exceed my scores. Now,
Yeah, and I think also paying attention to small things, like, for example, I mean, there's one thing to be tired from a workout. It's another thing to say, well, you know what? My elbow is feeling a little bit sore here after that erg today. Something that's just a little indication that there could be some inflammation or something that's just it's not just regular muscle fatigue, something that feels a little bit out of place. When in doubt, be conservative. Always play the conservative role. I think you can prevent so many overuse injuries if you're just willing to back off right away for a day or two, or train but do something different. And actually, this next question, I'll build on that, because this is something that has just helped me recently, because I've had a small little bite of tendonitis in my elbow on the erg. So here, I'll let Rebecca ask this question, and then I'll tell you what I did.
So thanks to Bob Reichart, who asked this question, which is, I'm curious if you've any thoughts on the use of the ski erg in training for rowing. I've started using short bouts of it in my warm-ups, and it seems to be a great addition for ab strength. On the other hand, he says it's a lot of work to get my heart rate up. There's no relaxing or zoning out on the ski erg.
Is there zoning out or relaxing on the regular erg, Bob? Actually, I'm giving him a hard time. So anyway, to build on Gavin's question and then to tie into Bob's question, the ski erg, which Concept 2 has just come out, utilizes the same type of flywheel that you have on the indoor rower. And the ski erg is for those of us who love Nordic skiing, and it's like a double poling motion and a single poling motion. And you can, if you are skiing with proper technique, you can really, really get your heart rate up, just like you can on the erg. And it's psychologically, it's just a really nice change. I have a ski erg at home as well. And when Gavin was talking about the overuse injuries, the other day I was rowing on the erg and I noticed I had a spot on my elbow that was starting, it was hurting in an unpleasant way. And I thought, well, I must have done something the other day, must have lifted something incorrectly. It didn't happen on the erg, but I felt it on the erg. So what I started doing was, I stopped erging after 10 minutes, and then I switched over to the ski erg, because the ski erg has a different motion, absolutely different direction, so you can still keep your heart rate up without putting extra stress on that tendon insertion, which was hurting. But the ski erg, where it can be, it can be really nice to mix modalities in the wintertime. I like to call it an aerobic medley. So maybe you do 10 minutes on an erg, maybe you do 10 minutes on a spinning bike, maybe you do 10 minutes on the ski erg, or 20 minutes on the ski erg, 20 minutes on the rowing erg, mixing things up. But the ski erg can be a great way to develop your core strength, because double poling is all core. Okay, it's getting your weight up over the handles, and it's hinging from the hip, and it's drawing down using your core. It also works your lats a lot. And for rowers, our lats and our back strength is important. So this is one way that you can really get a lot of nice aerobic work for your lats without overstressing your spine, because you're not sitting. It's not the same motion as sitting. You're standing, you're hinging at the hips. So it's another way that you can really develop your back and your core and not be very stressful on the spine as well. So it's good cardio, and it supports the muscles we use in rowing. So the Concept 2 website has some really good technique drills and workout ideas, and they have now world rankings and challenges and all this stuff for the skier, just like they do for the indoor rower. So they're popping up in more gyms. But if you have a home gym, that's a super addition, like elastics and a Swiss ball and things like that.
So, Bob, one thing I would say is it's possible, if you're finding it hard to get your heart rate up, that you don't have great technique on the ski erg. I personally have never used one except playing around. So go study some technique videos on YouTube, because it's definitely something you notice if you're working with alongside novice rowers. They find it really hard to get the work on because they don't have the skill to work out how to handle the oars, engage with the water, etc. So just check that out for yourself as well.
That might be an interesting topic for us to do. Having been a Nordic ski instructor for many, many years, definitely good technique and same principles. And Bob, Bob coaches at Craftsbury sometimes, so maybe he has to head up there for the Scullers ski weekend in January. Okay, so for Rebecca, we have another question from Penny Johnston from Australia. And she asks about motivation and how to stay motivated in her singles training sessions.
So Penny tells a really great story around why she's asking this. She says, mostly I train on my own on the lake. And she says it's the 1956 Olympic course, which I believe was Melbourne Olympics. Mm-hmm. It's 2Ks of 6 lanes of buoyed rowing course. And I would love to know how I can improve my splits. I can lose speed and focus, as sometimes I get swamped by a school coach speedboat who seem to be so focused on their own cruise they forget that their donuts are sending huge wakes across to the other lanes. And she says that'll slow me down. Or a fisherman, she says, looms up out of the reeds, nearly giving me a heart attack and a sudden stop. She says, usually I'm just slogging up and down, trying to increase my speed, but I find it hard to motivate myself to keep rowing hard. As a consequence, I fear I'm not getting any faster. She then confesses that she's one of those people who secretly fantasizes about having a cox in her single scull.
It's possible. It's possible.
I'd just let you know, Penny, you are on your own there. I am not with you. Anyway, having said that, so the key to motivation, and I have a lot of sympathy for your position. I went once on a training camp where my husband was coaching eights cruise, and they were doing lots of seat racing. And I just said, I'll put my single on the trailer and I'll come with you. And by about the 5th day of a 9-day camp, I had had enough of my own company. I went out and found an aerobics class in the local gym because I was done with sculling on my own. Anyway, so the first thing to say is, what's your session that you're planning for today? Whatever it is, break it down into smaller elements. Feel like you have a local horizon that you can aim for. So have a little plan and then stick to your plan. Now, if you can't always remember it when you're on the water, write it on a bit of paper, a Post-it note, and just stick it in the skull in front of you, stick it in your legs, stick it up your shorts, so that when you stop and turn around, you can pull it out and check what you were planning on doing. So if you don't have a training program, number one. Secondly, for the session, have a plan for how you're going to attack that session. So for myself, I know that I have a tendency to cut things short. So I think, oh, I feel warmed up now, even though I had planned on doing 4K as my warm up. I'll just think, oh, I'll just start the workout early. Maybe I'm running short of time. So whatever it is, make your plan and stick to it. I will say that one of the things that I think you should always do is have a very clear idea of, on the 2K course, when you stop and turn. I always stop and turn 2 strokes after I've gone through the final marker buoy for the 2K mark. Don't stop before the line, for example. When you get down to the start end of the course, same deal. Turn around. If you want to, back into the stake boat start, you can, or you can just agree in your mind that you will always start working when you're 3 lengths out from the end of the lake or whatever is relevant for you. I will say that I think you need a buddy. It sounds to me like it's genuinely mentally tough for you. And so having someone who can even just show up once in a while would be really good for you, to have someone to row alongside, or even just to say hi to, or say, shall we do our warm up together? So on our lake, when we have crews of different speeds, which is somewhat harder to manage in a straight lane course, we will often go around the perimeter. So the slower crew goes on the inside, so you take a slightly shorter course, and the faster crew goes around the outside. And so we can basically almost stay side by side, even though we're crews of different speeds. The other thing you can do is plan to meet someone at a certain point in your workout. So you say, I'm going to do 3 of these pieces on my own, but the 4th one, can we meet down at the 2K start and at least start the piece together? You could speak to that coach of the high school crew, not so much about their careless wake, but more about asking them what they're planning to do with the kids in their outing, and whether or not you could line up alongside them. They might welcome the opportunity to have their kids get beaten off the start by a lady in a single because they're slow starting in their 8th, for example. Or you could have a head start, and then, they could try and race through you and you could try and hold them off. So definitely speak to the high school coach, because even if it just starts with you waving and saying hi every time you see them, that'll heighten their awareness of you as another user of the lake, and hopefully they'll become a little bit more respectful as well. So that's my core recommendations for you, Penny.
How about planning some races, or how about some, there are workouts you can do that are trials, that aren't races, but are definite progress checks. Like, for example, 30 minutes at stroke rate 24 and track your meters, something like that. So maybe you do that workout once every 2 weeks. Maybe you do it weekly, but having certain workouts that you can track, because that will give you one goal in terms of, are you covering more meters? But I think also looking at goals like, how can I row better? Just like we were talking about earlier with Cinda, looking towards the winter, pick apart all the little components of your rowing. How can you make is there one thing you can do to make the recovery 1% better? Is there anything technically you can do to make your drive 1% better? Can you improve your warm-up? Are you just doing the same thing over and over again, or are you changing what you're doing? Keeping yourself interested and engaged, the byproduct, it comes from motivation. Like, you can be motivation, but you have to put that into action. So I think identifying new action steps, try something new, like, try a backing race for 500 meters as one of your exercises. One thing I do when I'm out rowing my single, I always come in with about 500 meters of backing, for my backing skills, and one to use the different muscles, but backing skills, very important safety skill, but you need it to get into your starts too. But I think really identifying all the little places where you can improve 1% and having some way to track that, keep a journal if you're not keeping a journal, have a monthly review, have an annual review. I think focus a lot on the process as well, but I think getting a training partner
I would say on a 2K course, you do have an opportunity which the rest of us who don't train in such a gorgeous environment don't have, which is plan something on every marker. So you probably have a change of colored buoy that comes up every 500 meters. You might just say, right, every time I get to the 500 meter mark, I'm going to square earlier for the next 500 meters. You have a technical focus regardless of what you're actually doing, and make that something you know you need to work on. So you make it really deliberate and a conscious part of your training. The other thing which you might like, which I learned from a very crazy lunatic lightweight man of my acquaintance, he was trying to improve his erg score, and he was training in a commercial gym, and it had a very large changing room. And he said, every time I went to the gym, I figured out I had like 50 training sessions that I needed to do before I had my next big test. Every time I went to the gym, I went into the changing room and I hung my bag on the next coat peg along so I could track my progress towards my goal based on the 50 coat pegs that were around the perimeter of the room. So he knew how close he was based on which coat peg he hung his bag on.
It's like whatever works, whatever works. But action steps, we can think about things, but putting something into an actionable next step, like the next, and I think you have to really enjoy the process too, because rowing, some of it is about getting faster, but I mean, there's a whole process of just enjoying the training, enjoying how you feel after the training. Like, are you motivated to train because you love the way you feel after a good workout, or after a good row? And if Penny doesn't have someone to train with on the water, maybe you can go to a gym, and maybe there's some certain classes or fitness classes or weight training classes or strength classes that you could do with a group, so that you're not training all the time by yourself if you don't have that opportunity on the water.
Totally. Now we've got a little product suggestion. A couple of people have come to us recently and said that they would very much like to have some advice on some good, and we have found these, which I have a pair of. They're called Fitkicks, and they're basically a rubber sole with a nylon upper with an elastic band over it, and they're extremely good for if you have to wade out through water to get into your boat, or if you're one of those people who have to row in a boat which has shoes that are several sizes too large for your own feet. So they've just got a little bit more bulk to them, and because they have a rigid sole, they're extremely good, and they pack completely flat. So I find they're quite good for traveling if you need airplane shoes, but they're also super stuff to wear for training as just simple, not too expensive boat shoes. And there you go. This is the color of the one that I have. I have a aqua green with a lime green tape over them. And I'll put the link in the show notes. So if you want a pair of boat shoes, there's a suggestion.
Maybe you could have them designed to match your painting on your blades.
You could, or your club colors. Although
Right.
I have a problem with that. I keep joining rowing clubs who have navy blue as their color. Like my high school was navy blue, my university college was navy blue, and I'm now at a club with navy blue. It's really boring. I also don't have a solution for that. Lastly, a quick reminder, if you're thinking of joining fastermastersrowing.com and buying training programs from us, you can get a monthly subscription program. There are 4 different ones: individual, crew, club, and a magazine, which excludes a training program but has a lot of our articles and technique advice. And of course, there are one-off ebooks, and the URL's on the screen now, but it's fastermastersrowing.com/all courses. And that's where you'll find the ebooks that I referenced earlier. There's one about fitness assessments. There's another one about training and aging, and a couple of others that might interest you. And a reminder that we launched our video review service last month. And thank you to the Weybridge ladies from the UK who have sent us 2 great videos to analyse for their crew. One was them on the ergs, and another one was in a tank, wasn't it, Marlene?
Yep, sweep rowing in a tank.
So thanks to them, and anyone else who wants to buy a review, now's a very good time.
And ski erg reviews are available too.
Oh, that's a great idea. For those of us who want to do that.
Yes.
Any last thoughts, Marlene?
I think we're approaching holiday season. American Thanksgiving is coming up this week, and that kind of launches people into the holiday season. But around the world, as the holidays approach, do your best to stay on track. You may be travel safely. Remember that little things count, and you'll feel much, much better come January 1st if you don't completely bag your training, unless you decide that that's consciously what you're going to do. But do your best to stay on track. You may not, even if you're training 3 times a week, you're going to maintain your fitness during the busy holiday time. So, have that as your minimum goal. And, then come January 1st, you can get back on the program again. But if you can stay on track, definitely.
And just because of that, a reminder that we will have the Faster Masters programs for January will be up before Christmas so that you can download them in advance. And we'll also publish our podcast early for January. So your New Year's resolutions will be all lined up for you.
Great.
So that's it from us this month. Till next time. Goodbye.